And the New Statesman has a whole story here. And we like to cover the New Statesman as good lefties. And it's how a single call sealed Andy Burnham's fate. And what they're talking about is it was all done on Microsoft Teams. It was just on just a callous Teams call. And he was blocked. And he was voted down 8-1. Lucy Powell was the only one that said, can we do this? Burnham's good. But Starmer and all his minions, and including Mahmood, strangely, said, no, you can't. So that was that. Apparently no voices were raised. The explosive decision was made without fanfare. It's like, well, yeah, they're all robots. So it was blocked. It didn't go through. And there's just some quite fascinating stuff about how it was done. The Telegraph has this from a former Starmer advisor. Blair would never have taken the decision to block Andy Burnham within 24 hours of him putting his name forward for selection, says the Labour veteran. There would have been more of a process and more consultations. It would have been more subtle, and he would not have got so directly involved. I don't think any leader other than Keir would have attended an officers' meeting and personally voted to block Burnham. These are brutal decisions, and it tells you a lot about the character of Keir. He's pretty spiky when he wants to be. And of course, he's also in a much weaker position than Blair, and he doesn't have the skills of Blair. But Paul, it was done in a Microsoft Teams, and Burnham was blocked. What do you make of it all?
I mean, of course it was. This is Labour, isn't it? This is exactly how I expect them to make all their decisions, on Teams. Please, can we gather on Teams? Thank you very much. And nobody's allowed to put comments in the comments section at all. By the way, the continuous comparison, the perpetual comparison with Tony Blair is really tiresome now, isn't it? It's like, by the way, Tony Blair left government in 2007. That's nearly 20 years ago, and Labour have got no comparison. Well, of course they haven't. Who since then has had a reputation anywhere near his for being anywhere near good? So I'm not surprised he's being compared with Tony Blair. And Tony Blair, of course, he would have done it differently. But Tony Blair had confidence in his own ability. I don't think Keir Starmer has got any confidence in his own ability. Of course he hasn't. Although, interestingly, he does seem to have power over the vote of the NEC, which, by the way, from my understanding, is supposed to be entirely impartial. And Mahmood is chairperson. So I wasn't even sure that she had a vote. I thought they abstained. And he could, by the way, that's another thing. Keir Starmer could have abstained from that vote as well. So that tells you something. That tells you that he was fearful, so fearful that the Prime Minister exercised his vote in the NEC to make sure that Andy Burnham didn't stand at all. I mean, by the way, had Andy Burnham stood,
but it is Burnham just for the it is.
Sorry, mate.
He's turned him into like a Flintstones character, like I don't know, Andy Burnham. I don't know.
We didn't have any Burnhams down here, mate. It was Smith
that's
and Jones.
the thing. And we'll get into that because my northern credentials are going to be brandished later, like a pie. But I do want to say, Paul, the NEC is about as impartial as John McEnroe umpiring his own game. That's the reference I'm going with. It's like, you cannot be serious. I am, and I've just called it. Thank you, John. It's like, it's so ridiculous the way it's organized. It's a total the whole thing's a stitch up. It goes in the Telegraph into how it's done. As you say, Mahmood is on there, Wheeler, Mason, Mike Payne. There's a bit, but basically, Blair made it so that it was far less impartial when he was in, and Starmer has just sort of capitalized further on that. But and as for whether this, but then there's a question: should this kind of thing be allowed to happen? There's one take here from a Labour peer who says Burnham being blocked is the left getting a taste of their own medicine. The left under Corbyn behaved appallingly in making sure good candidates like Roger Goodsif got deselected. This was under Corbyn. So on the left, so those on the left who want Andy Burnham to be selected to fight a parliamentary seat so he can mount a leadership challenge really don't have a leg to stand on. So he's saying it's hypocrisy there. But 50 Labour MPs haven't agreed because they've signed a letter objecting to the Burnham decision. And this is quite extraordinary because they've said it's a real gift to reform, and it's vacating the seat. And they say there's no legitimate reason to block Burnham and ask for Labour's ruling body to reevaluate the decision. And one interesting part is the names who have signed the letter are not expected to be public, though they are being communicated to party leadership, which basically means when Starmer finds out, he can just purge you all and send you to the gulag. So 50 MPs objecting, but they've been overruled.
Yeah, incredibly authoritarian. Let's have it right. There's nothing liberal about this approach whatsoever, and of course not, because the idea of being liberal and left wing is a myth. There's only one real emotion, and that's the right wing emotion. The thing about being right wing is that it's in tune with being human. I don't think in any way being left wing is in tune. It's anti-human, if anything, because you are always performatively pretending to be a certain way and obfuscating any of your real innate human reactions to anything. And let's not forget, it wasn't that long ago. I mean, Labour have only been in power about 20 months. I know it feels like 20 years. It was 20 months. They stood on a couple of things, and that was that the adults were back in the room. We've not seen any of the adults yet. God help us if this is the adults. And we really do need God's help at this point. And the other thing is Keir Starmer said it's country before party. And it's now Keir Starmer before party, before country. Country's about third down the list, if we're lucky. He's holding on to power like, I don't know, like shit to a pan.
We should say, to be really fair to Starmer, which we love being here, that he cited resources as the reason. He said, well, this will cost a lot of money and it's a waste of resources and it's not appropriate for the party. Obviously, that was the fairly flimsy excuse from Starmer. Obviously, we know the reason. He doesn't want to be challenged by Burnham. And by the way, there's quite a funny hypocrisy here. Starmer in 2020 said the selections for Labour candidates needs to be more democratic, and we should end NEC impositions of candidates. Local party members should select their candidates for every election. So I've said Keir Starmer should listen to Keir Starmer on this. No, by the way, I've had some massive tweets lately, so now I'm posting deliberitely obscure ones just to ruin that.
Can you tell our audience why, though, Nick? There is a reason you've got an uptick, isn't there?
Oh yeah, well, because old Ilonovich Muskovich replied to me. That's what I think of him as. If he was in a Russian novel, that's what it'd be called. Yeah, old Elon replied to me, and he's been liking several of my tweets. I don't know why, but he just likes a bit of ND. And he's liked about 6 of them. He replied to one, and what that did, that immediately gave that one millions of views. And because your one is on the premium scheme, he's basically blessing you with money. Right, because if he replies, you get more engagement, and then you get more money. So it's a weird kind of, I bless you with cash. I haven't seen yet what the difference has been. It hasn't come in yet. But I mean, it could be a major. I won't be rich, but it'll be a few more dollars. Elon, the Elon bucks, the well-documented Elon bucks.
I love the religious undertones of that, by the way. Elon just blesses you. You shall. You shall be popular, Nick. You will earn the dollars. By the way, Elon, I know you're watching now. Big fan of Dixon. Get on board with the Cox. That's what I say. X is the only platform I'm not monetized on. So, Elon, come on, mate.
Yeah, what's it about?
Or at least let me know what we're going to do. Just give me a like. Do something. And then I, too, can earn $6 a week on X. And, we can all get on with our lives.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, we probably shouldn't get too derailed with that, because everyone knows I can talk about my tweets forever. But so Paul, well, there's the only one thing more to cover on this Burnham thing is who's going to stand next. Well, Burnham can stand at next general election, says Starmer, which kind of reminds me of when my mum used to say, you can have a day off tomorrow, and she meant the weekend when I was like incredibly ill and wanted a day off school. So that's not going to help him. It says Starmer's understood to have offered support to support Burnham running in 2027. However, the proposal was not accepted, and the Prime Minister's allies have since suggested that Burnham's publicly angry response to being blocked may mean that even a tentative deal will not come to pass. So that's not happening.
Well, and can I just comment on that? Yeah. There's absolutely no chance that when the next general election comes around that Keir Starmer's involved in the decision making whatsoever. Zero chance. Now, I know he's clinging on, like I said, the metaphorical shit on a pan, but he cannot, please, Lord, he cannot see in a general election, whenever that might come, he will be the reason for the general election. He will be the reason for the implosion of the Labour Party. So I think Andy Burnham is quite safe from that. It all depends on how involved Keir Starmer is after he obviously kills the country and his party.
Yeah, I can't see him lasting. And by the way, I think many listeners are wondering why is Paul shitting on his pans, but that's a separate issue. The pressing issue.
It's pan instead of pants, but
pan. Yeah, I got the pan. I still don't understand. Like, I mean, I mean,
well, I don't know if you've ever. I don't know how much cleaning you've done, Nick.
I have a Polish woman. I'm a Remainer, Paul. I have a Polish woman. But go on.
Look. Here's the thing, and there is a thing about this. Keir Starmer is weakened by this. Keir Starmer. We already knew he was a coward. There isn't anyone watching or listening to this who didn't think that Keir Starmer was a coward. Now they know for sure. He's told the country, I think. And by the way, all the Labour advisors that I know, and I do know a couple, they're all Burnham fans. I'm no Burnham fan, by the way. I don't want to see Burnham as our next PM. But what I would like is to see a PM with some backbone. And Keir Starmer, he's like a jellyfish. I say this all the time. He has no backbone whatsoever. He could have done something very simple here. Like, very simple. Machiavellian even. He could have invited him into the party and then said, come and join the cabinet. You can be, the minister for wanking or whatever they make up next. And then just put his arm around him and say, I know you want my job, but you're not getting it. And scare the living crap out of him and just keep him under his control. But show the rest. Hitler wouldn't have done this, would he? I just ruined the bloody algorithm. But he wouldn't, would he? He would have said, come on in. And then 3 weeks later, the guy would have died in a mysterious balcony incident.
Yeah,
that's leadership, Nick.
Well, yeah, and Keir Starmer, he's not really lived up to it. Yeah, well, he has tried to sort of delete him from the photograph, so to speak, in Trotsky-esque fashion. But yes, it's a tricky one. What could he do if he took the leadership contest? He would be in trouble because Burnham, yeah, why not? Burnham would have been quite popular, but it would have been a Burnhamship campaign. But if he does this, he looks bad as well, and the whole party's alienated. And yeah, they're both bad. Because he's in such a weak position, he's the least popular prime minister ever. So that will, given that he's actually done incredibly well, in that context, to be the least popular prime minister we've ever had, and then be facing leadership challenge in that context, he's done extraordinarily well to put this down. But then the question becomes, who'll be the next person? New Statesman says Wes Streeting is still the obvious candidate waiting in the background. He's been my prediction when we had to predict on Lotus Eat is what's going to happen this year. I said Wes Streeting, but the calculation behind Starmer's brute use of political force is that he would rather face Streeting than Burnham in a contest. Starmer supporters argue privately that if it came to it, the Prime Minister could beat the Health Secretary in a ballot of Labour members. That's quite interesting. So he wants to face Streeting, they say. Now the middle of the party finds itself back where it was several months ago without a clear candidate who could stand against Streeting. Rayner has told friends she would stand to stop Streeting, yet she's waiting for her tax affairs to be resolved. What do you think about all that?
Well, I know this will come as a little bit of a surprise that Angela Rayner's name is in that mix, but I've always had a hunch that she's got a great chance in this particular Labour Party of becoming leader of that Labour Party and therefore de facto Prime Minister. I know for a fact that many people within Labour see Wes Streeting as, get this, Nick, too far right. Wes Streeting. Wes Streeting.
Lol. The guy that wants to trans children still in 2026.
Who said abandoning puberty blockers, and people like you and I went, oh, thank God for that. This is sensible. But what I'm going to do is have a dedicated trial where the same kids can get access to those life-changing drugs. And we'll see how they go. That's the same thing, you knob. So I lost all faith in Wes Streeting. He does seem like the only person within that cabinet. Other people point at Mahmood, by the way. She seems to be someone who, I think, entirely performatively, by the way, is maybe a little bit in tune with what the public are interested in. But absolutely no one in that cabinet is qualified to lead this country. And maybe they're all qualified to leave this country. And God, I wish they would. But maybe we can remigrate the cabinet. That's going to be my slogan. Remigrate the cabinet. Vote Cox.
Lord Cox.
What do you think, Nick? Tell me. This is what people really want to know, is what do you think, Nick?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do so much of the spade work of the hosting. We never get to hear my opinion, Paul. Well, I was actually spending my time there looking for a video of Ed Miliband blinking stupidly because I can't find it. But you know that video? It's like, that was my big fear, was Ed Miliband getting in because he was popular with the party because the party are idiots. And there's that video of him just blinking, isn't there? Just like classic Ed Miliband. He'd be, but then I saw a poll I was just trying to look for where he had 4%. I think it was just the Telegraph readers or something. But I noticed that he's always the least popular with any people, but he's quite popular in the party. You've got Mahmood, you've got Streeting, you've got Burnham, Rayner, maybe a couple of others who are too boring for me to remember. I mean, Burnham would have been a solid challenge to Starmer. He's not actually any good either, but he seems more personable. Streeting, I think, is the real threat. I've always thought that. Not that he's any good either. I mean, they're all terrible. But I mean, when you look at the list, you're like, that is awful. To be honest, crazily for us, Paul, and I'm going to throw you in as well. Mahmood would be the best in terms of like ostensibly the most sensible. But then, some people are a bit worried about, do we want a sort of hardcore Muslim? She's like very big on like Islam's everything to me. And her past, she's been involved with some quite radical protests and things like that. So you go like, hang on, this is mental. But she wouldn't stop the votes either, but she'd talk a slightly better game about it than the other people that wouldn't stop it. It's all completely irrelevant because they're all absolutely terrible.